When a 4-year-old boy dials 911 after his mother collapses in the kitchen, he has no idea that his tiny voice will not only save her life, but change the destiny of his entire family. What happens next will shock everyone involved and reveal that sometimes the smallest among us can make the biggest difference. The morning sun filtered through the kitchen curtains of the modest suburban home on Maple Street. Lisa Matthews hummed softly as she prepared breakfast, the familiar routine bringing comfort as she juggled single motherhood and her demanding job as a nurse. Her 4-year-old son Ethan sat at the kitchen table, his legs swinging freely as he concentrated on coloring a superhero picture. "Mommy, can I have more orange juice?" Ethan asked, looking up with his bright blue eyes. "Of course, sweetheart," Lisa replied, smiling at her son's polite request. She reached for the refrigerator door when suddenly a sharp pain shot through her chest. The glass in her hand slipped, shattering on the tile floor. Lisa gasped, clutching her chest as the room began to spin around her. She tried to call out to Ethan, but the words wouldn't come. Her knees buckled beneath her, and she collapsed onto the kitchen floor, knocked unconscious by what would later be diagnosed as a severe cardiac event. Ethan froze, his crayon falling from his small hand. "Mommy," he called out, his voice trembling. When she didn't respond, he climbed down from his chair and cautiously approached her still form, careful to avoid the broken glass scattered across the floor. "Mommy, wake up," he whispered, gently touching her arm, but Lisa remained motionless, her breathing shallow and labored. Tears welled in Ethan's eyes, but something inside him, something beyond his years, urged him to act. Just 3 weeks earlier, Lisa had taught Ethan about emergency calls, showing him how to dial 911 on her phone if he ever needed help. She had made him memorize their address, drilling it into his memory through a little song they would sing together. At the time, it had seemed like just another lesson, something she taught alongside tying shoelaces and saying please and thank you. With trembling hands, Ethan reached for his mother's phone on the counter. His tiny fingers pressed the numbers just as she had taught him. 911. The dispatcher answered promptly. 911. "What's your emergency?" "My mommy fell down," Ethan said, his voice small but clear. "She won't wake up." "Hi there, can you tell me your name?" the dispatcher asked, her tone immediately softening. "I'm Ethan. I'm 4, he responded, a slight quiver in his voice. "You're doing great, Ethan. Can you tell me where you are?" Ethan took a deep breath and began to sing the little song his mother had taught him. "I live at 4227 Maple Street, that's where you can find me." On the other end of the line, dispatcher Sarah Collins felt goosebumps rise on her arms. In her 15 years answering emergency calls, she had rarely encountered a child so young who could provide such crucial information so clearly. "That's perfect, Ethan. I'm sending help right now. Can you stay on the phone with me until they arrive?" "Yes," Ethan whispered, sitting down beside his mother. "But please hurry. Mommy looks very sleepy." Officer James Parker was just finishing his coffee when the call came through. A 4-year-old boy, home alone with his unconscious mother. Emergency situations involving children always accelerated his heartbeat, and this was no exception. He flipped on his siren and headed toward Maple Street, arriving at the small blue house within minutes. As he approached the front door, he could hear a child's voice through the open kitchen window. "The policeman is coming, Mommy. He's going to help you wake up." James knocked firmly. "Police, is anyone home?" "We're in the kitchen," came the small reply. The door was unlocked and James entered cautiously, following the sound of the child's voice. What he found in the kitchen made his heart sink. A young woman lay unconscious on the floor, her skin alarmingly pale, while a small boy with tousled brown hair sat beside her, holding her hand. "Hi there," James said gently, kneeling beside the pair. "Are you Ethan?" The boy nodded, tears streaming down his face. "Can you help my mommy now?" "The ambulance is on its way," James assured him, quickly checking Lisa's vital signs. Her pulse was weak and irregular. "You did the right thing by calling for help, buddy. You're very brave." The ambulance arrived moments later, and the paramedics worked quickly, loading Lisa onto a stretcher. As they prepared to transport her, a dilemma arose: what to do with Ethan? With no other adults present and no immediate family contacts available, protocol dictated that Child Protective Services be called. "I want to go with Mommy," Ethan insisted, his small hand clutching the edge of his mother's stretcher. James looked at the determination in the boy's eyes and made a decision that would later be described as controversial but compassionate. "I'll take responsibility for him," he told the paramedics. "He can ride with me to the hospital." During the drive, Ethan sat quietly in the back seat, his booster seat hastily installed from Lisa's car. "You know, Ethan," James said, watching the boy through the rearview mirror. What you did today was incredible. Many grown-ups wouldn't have known what to do in an emergency like that. Ethan looked up, his eyes still wet with tears. Mommy taught me the song about our address. She said it's important to remember. Your mom sounds like a very smart lady, James replied, feeling a lump form in his throat. At the hospital, the doctors worked frantically to stabilize Lisa. The diagnosis was severe, a rare form of heart condition that had gone undetected during her routine physicals. Without Ethan's quick action, the doctors later explained, Lisa would not have survived. As Lisa underwent emergency surgery, James stayed with Ethan in the waiting room. Hospital policy typically wouldn't allow this, but the extraordinary circumstances in James's badge granted them an exception. Hours passed, and Ethan eventually fell asleep on the uncomfortable waiting room chair, his small head resting against James's arm. It was during this quiet moment that a nurse approached with news. We've been able to contact Missy's emergency contact. Her sister is driving in from Portland but won't arrive until morning. James nodded, looking down at the sleeping child. I'll stay with him until then. Officer, that's beyond the call of duty, the nurse said with admiration. Not today it isn't, James replied softly. When Lisa finally emerged from surgery, the doctors described her condition as stable but serious. She would need time to recover and significant lifestyle changes moving forward. The surgeon, Dr. Eleanor Chen, pulled James aside while Ethan was distracted by a kind volunteer who had brought him a snack. That little boy saved his mother's life, Dr. Chen said firmly. If he hadn't called when he did, if the response hadn't been so quick, we would be having a very different conversation right now. James nodded, watching Ethan from across the room. He's quite remarkable. Indeed, Dr. Chen agreed. But I'm concerned about their situation. Miss Albisa's medical records indicate she's a single mother, working full-time as a nurse. Her recovery will take months, and she won't be able to work during that time. The implications were clear. With no income, Lisa and Ethan faced an uncertain future, possibly losing their home, definitely struggling financially. I understand, James said quietly, a plan already forming in his mind. Lisa's sister, Megan, arrived early the next morning, looking exhausted from her overnight drive. After checking on her still unconscious sister, she found Ethan asleep on James's lap in the waiting room. Thank you for staying with him, she said to James, her voice thick with emotion. I can't imagine what would have happened if. He's an amazing kid, James replied, carefully transferring the sleeping child to a more comfortable position on the chair as he stood. I've never seen such bravery in someone so young. Before leaving, James handed Megan his card. Please call me when Lisa wakes up. And if you need anything at all, don't hesitate to reach out. 3 days later, James's phone rang. It was Megan, informing him that Lisa was awake and asking for him. When he arrived at the hospital, he found Lisa sitting up in bed, pale but alert, with Ethan curled up beside her, carefully avoiding the various tubes and wires. Officer Parker, Lisa said weakly, extending her hand. I understand I have you to thank for taking care of my son. James shook his head. It's James, please. And the thanks go entirely to Ethan. He's the hero in this story. Tears filled Lisa's eyes as she stroked her son's hair. The doctors told me what happened. He remembered everything I taught him, but they also told me about my condition, about the recovery ahead. Her voice trailed off, the worry evident in her expression. That's actually something I wanted to talk to you about, James said, pulling a chair closer to the bed. The department has a program for families in crisis. We've already started a collection to help with your medical bills, and several officers' spouses have volunteered to help with Ethan while you recover. Lisa looked stunned. But why? You don't even know us. Sometimes that doesn't matter, James replied simply. Sometimes doing the right thing is reason enough. 6 months later, Lisa was cleared to return to work part-time. Her recovery had been challenging but successful, supported by the unexpected community that had formed around her and Ethan after the incident. James had become a regular visitor, often bringing dinner or taking Ethan to the park to give Lisa time to rest. One evening, as they sat on the porch watching Ethan play in the yard, Lisa turned to James with a thoughtful expression. You know, the hospital where I work is implementing a new program to teach parents how to prepare their children for emergencies, she said. They asked me to share our story. James smiled. That's a great idea. What Ethan did was extraordinary, but it shouldn't be. Every child should know what to do in a crisis. Exactly, Lisa agreed, her eyes lighting up with purpose. I've been thinking, what if we developed a curriculum? Something simple that parents and teachers could use to teach young children basic emergency response. That conversation marked the beginning of what would eventually become the Tiny Heroes program, a comprehensive curriculum designed to teach children as young as 3 how to respond in various emergency situations. What began as a small local initiative expanded rapidly as stories of children saving lives began to accumulate, proving the program's effectiveness. 1 year after Lisa's collapse, she stood beside James in an elementary school auditorium, watching as Ethan confidently demonstrated to his peers how to make an emergency call. Dressed in a specially made police uniform with a small cape attached, his one condition for participating, he led the children in singing the address song Lisa had taught him. "Did you ever imagine this is where we'd end up?" Lisa whispered to James, who had become much more than a supportive friend during her recovery. James shook his head, smiling as he watched Ethan with pride. "Never, but I'm grateful every day for that tiny voice on the phone that led me to you both." As they stood side by side, watching Ethan's demonstration, they both knew that what had begun as a moment of crisis had transformed into something extraordinary, a purpose that would continue to save lives for years to come, and a family bond that had formed in the most unexpected of circumstances. One tiny voice had indeed changed destinies forever. 5 years later, the Tiny Heroes program had expanded nationwide, with curriculum materials in schools across the country and documented cases of children successfully calling for help in emergencies. Lisa and James, now married and raising Ethan together along with twin girls they had adopted, frequently shared their story at conferences and training events. But perhaps the most powerful testament to the program's impact came in the quiet moments, like when a dispatcher would call to tell them about another child who had remembered what to do in a crisis, or when a parent would approach them with tears of gratitude, explaining how their child's quick action had made all the difference. Each time they heard such stories, Lisa would squeeze James's hand and glance at Ethan, now a confident and compassionate young boy, who barely remembered that frightening morning in the kitchen. To him it was simply what had brought their family together and started them on this path of purpose. "You know what still amazes me?" Lisa said one evening as they watched the children playing in the backyard of their home on Maple Street, the same home where it had all begun. "What's that?" James asked, his arm around her shoulders. "How the worst moment of my life became the beginning of everything good," she replied softly. And as they sat together in the fading light, watching their children's laughter fill the space that had once known such fear, they were reminded once again of the profound truth at the heart of their journey. Sometimes the smallest voices speak the most important words, and sometimes a single call can change everything. As Ethan's story shows us, one tiny voice can truly change everything. Has a child's bravery ever left you speechless? Or have you witnessed how a single moment of kindness transforms someone's entire journey? We'd love to hear your experiences in the comments below. If this tale of courage and unexpected family touched your heart, please take a moment to like this video and subscribe to our channel. Your support allows us to continue sharing these powerful stories that remind us all. Sometimes our darkest moments can lead to our greatest blessings. Share this with someone who might need hope today. Until next time, remember, no voice is ever too small to make a difference, and no act of kindness is ever wasted. Thank you for listening.